Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss and internet shitlords, which, by the way, is not a title that I came up with myself, but that someone else said about me. And today, I'm here to talk to you about the true motivations of the DnDGate tag/movement. And the reason for that is that if you're on Twitter, or maybe certain other social media, you might have seen this last couple of days a huge explosion of attention from the SJW crowd about that hashtag that I had made a little while back, and that there were some people that had doubts about whether or not that hashtag was relevant or necessary. And, well, I guess many thanks to all the SJWs who commented on it, because they helped prove why it's relevant and necessary. But, of course, the way they did that is by spreading a crap load of utter lies about me and about what that whole statement is about. So I figured I should clear things up a bit. And to start with, this here is Arrows of Indra. It's the OSR game based in mythical India, where you can play adventurers in the world of the ancient Indian myths. It's a very cool game. You should check it out. But besides that, it is very likely the, as far as I know, and no one in 4 years has been able to point out differently, the very first RPG rulebook to feature a transgender hero on the cover. And, you know, when I did that, when Arrows of Indra was published, I mentioned it like once when it came out, and then didn't bring it up again until, well over a year later, maybe close to a year and a half, after 5th edition came out and my name was in the consulting credits. And then this piece of crap named Bruce Baugh, who's a sort of game designer of terrible games, intentionally spread the lie that I was opposed to the inclusive language in the 5th edition Player's Handbook, and that I was actually transphobic. And he spread that lie willingly, knowing it was a lie, and a bunch of other people spread it willingly, knowing that it was a lie. But of course, after a while, a bunch of people spread it without knowing that it was a lie, thinking that this is really something I believe, and it's not. So I felt like I had to point this out to people. Now you're having a lot of the same stuff come up in this hashtag and reactions to it, where people are claiming that DnDGate is about wanting to exclude women and people of color and LGBT people from the gaming hobby, that the goal is to drive away everybody who isn't a straight white male, which sometimes this claim reaches levels of absurdity, like the other day when I had a trio of white guy SJWs, white males, not 100% sure about all their sexualities, some of them might not have been straight, but a trio of white males who are claiming that the DnDGate tag was about driving away minorities or endangering minorities, women and people of color and LGBT people. And they were arguing with myself, a Latino, a woman, a disabled gay Jew, and 2 transsexual women. But they were telling all of us, that that DnDGate is about oppressing minorities, right? So I have said time and time again in these videos, on the hashtags, all over the place, that my goal, it would be for everybody to play D&D. Everybody, regardless of race, sex, gender, sexuality, creed. None of that matters. What matters is if you want to play D&D. And if you're playing D&D, then you're a D&D gamer, you're part of the D&D hobby, and your skin color or who you bone or what gender you are is not relevant to your being a part of the hobby. You are absolutely a part of the hobby. And that has always been my position. And if you've seen someone claiming otherwise on social media, they're either liars or have fallen for things said by liars. So keep that in mind. Now, what else do we actually want? Well, what we want mainly is for D&D to not be overtaken and politicized by a group of left-wing activists with totalitarian tendencies, right? We want the game to be about the game. And when you have stuff like one of the major people in the design department of Wizards of the Coast writing a tweet suggesting that the proper D&D player reaction to be to the detaining of illegal immigrants on the border would be to violently liberate them, and that if you disagree with that, you're evil, and implying that this is, that you would not belong in the D&D community, so-called, if you don't agree with the kind of unlimited immigration policy of the modern left. That's an exact example of the problem. I'm not saying that you can't be left-wing and be part of the D&D hobby. That's not it either, right? It's about saying that, well, there should not be a group of people who think that they get to be in charge of this community that they've invented, and that will then proceed to exclude everybody who refuses to agree with what they claim unilaterally are the community values, that they're claiming it in the name of others, right? And this is the sort of thing you've seen happen not just in D&D, but in all elements of pop culture, right? The totalitarians have got a tote, and it needs to be total, right? It's got to be everywhere. Everything has to be politicized. Everything has to be about how horrible Trump is. Everything has to be about identity politics, right? And you're not allowed to abstain. You're not allowed to disagree. You're not allowed to do anything other than agree and obey, or else they will try to exclude you, right? And try to remove you by whatever means they can, which are different depending on what, cultural subculture you're talking about, right? And in the case of RPGs, fortunately, the non-centralized nature of role-playing games makes it very difficult for the totalitarians out there to effectively censor, to effectively ban, to effectively blacklist. But that doesn't change the problem, right? It's still a problem if they're trying to do this, and if they're creating this kind of a divisive environment, an environment where we have to constantly obsess over these issues, and where disagreement is not tolerated, or even abstention from agreeing is not tolerated. The goal here is not to get anybody fired, to censor anyone. Some people are saying, oh, well, you want to censor what Wizards writers say on their tweets. No, that's not it at all. I want there to be a distancing between what individual people might say. I defend absolutely their right to say it. Nobody wants to censor them. or certainly not me at least. But I don't want them to get to use some kind of a claim of being spokespeople or representatives of some kind of a community as a way for them to be allowed to censor or silence or marginalize others. And the easiest way to do this is simply to have a counter movement, and a counter movement that is vocal, that says, no, we don't all agree, no, we don't accept being part of your community, no, we don't believe you get to control us in the name of community. And for this counter movement to produce its own material, to produce its own environment, but not to try to like abandon itself into some little corner and ignore situations where you see the SJW crowd trying to extract control over, to exert control over the larger part of the hobby, especially to claim D&D for themselves in that sense. So that's what we're about, and we're about that for everyone. We want left-wing people to feel like they can sit down at a table and game, and there won't be any problem with them, being left-wing. We want right-wing people to be able to sit down at a game and feel like they can play without any problem for being right-wing. We want people who are neither of the above. We want people who are people of color, who are LGBT, who are, obviously women. Everybody should just be able to game in peace. And that's what this is about. It's not meant to drive anyone out of the hobby. It's meant to place the hobby first. So I guess that's all I have to say about this. Now here's the thing though. You guys who are watching this, probably most of you who watch this, well, maybe this is your first video, but for a lot of you, this might not be the first time you've seen this video. The best way to clarify what to clarify what's truth about what I've been saying versus what's lies is to look at what I'm actually saying in my videos and not what other people are saying about me or lying about me, right? But the problem is that there's a lot of people on Twitter who are seeing these blatant lies and don't see the actual source material because they've been told not to. Oh, no, you don't want to look at what he actually has to say because he's an evil gatekeeper, right? Instead, just believe what we tell you about him. Just believe when we say that, he hates black people or that he hates, Latinos, or that he, he's anti-trans. So the way to combat that is through these videos. And if you've already watch my videos and you like them, then please go out there and share those as first-hand sources for people who are claiming things about me, or people who want to be able to be sure for themselves what I'm actually saying. And that's, I think, the best way to combat the lies. Besides that, be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet so you can see my next videos. And if you're so inclined, you can give us some of that sweet, sweet Patreon money at the Inappropriate Characters channel, which you should also check out. There'll be a new episode coming pretty soon, which will maybe not talk about this, but we'll see. We're going to be talking about something controversial no matter what. But I suspect that by the time this episode comes out, the next episode of Inappropriate Characters, this will all be old news because we all have the attention span of gnats now. So check it out. It's always a surprise. You never know what's going to be talked about there. And support us on Patreon. And speak out. If you've listened to what I'm actually saying and you agree, then you have kind of a duty to say so, because the other side is extremely vociferous. And I know that it can be scary to stand up to them, but nothing will happen if you do, except that they will lose the air of speaking for everyone. right? Especially if you're a person of color, especially if you're LGBT, especially if you're a woman, because they claim to be speaking for you. They claim to be speaking for all of you. So stand up to that by just saying, well, you don't speak for me, right? Okay, that's it for today. Currently smoking, near a Cuddy, plus Cornell and Deal's Crowley's Best. Take care.